The workshop smelled like oil and metal the way it always did. Taman wiped his hands on a rag that had seen better days and stepped back to look at the old tractor engine he'd been working on for 3 hours. The engine belonged to Mr. Kim from the village, who needed it running before the spring planting season. Taman had promised it would be ready by tomorrow. He lived alone in this workshop at the edge of the mountains, far from the noise and crowds of Seoul. 5 years ago, he'd walked away from his engineering job at a big tech company. Everyone thought he was crazy. Good money, good benefits, good future. But Taman had felt like he was dying inside, doing the same tasks over and over, fixing problems that didn't matter to him. Here in the mountains, he fixed things that people actually needed: tractors, solar panels, old refrigerators that had been in families for generations. Sometimes people paid him with money, sometimes with vegetables or homemade rice wine. He didn't need much to be happy. The clock on the wall showed 11 at night. Taman decided to call it a day. He washed his hands in the small sink, made himself some instant noodles, and sat by the window eating. Outside, the forest was dark and quiet. Stars filled the sky in a way they never did in the city. He was halfway through his noodles when the sky turned white. Taman dropped his chopsticks and ran to the window. A streak of light was falling from the sky, but not like a shooting star. This was slower, more controlled. It made no sound, which seemed wrong. Meteors screamed when they fell. This thing just glided down like a leaf on water, leaving a trail of blue-white light behind it. It disappeared behind the trees about a kilometer away from his workshop. Taman waited for the explosion, the boom, the sound of impact. Nothing came. Just silence. Then his windows rattled with a deep thrum that he felt in his chest more than heard. His tools on the workbench vibrated and clinked together. Then everything went quiet again. Taman stood at the window for a long time watching the forest. Part of him wanted to go look right away. The bigger part of him knew that was stupid. It was dark. The forest was dangerous at night, and whatever had fallen might be radioactive or leaking fuel or any number of things that could kill him. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about that light. It didn't move like anything he'd ever seen. Eventually, he gave up on sleep and watched the forest from his window until the sun started to rise. At first light, Taman grabbed a backpack and filled it with tools. He didn't know why he was bringing tools, but it felt right. He added a flashlight, some rope, his phone, and a bottle of water. Then he headed into the forest. The impact site wasn't hard to find. Trees were bent outward in a circle, their trunks scorched black, but they weren't broken or knocked down. It was like something had pushed them very gently and burned them at the same time. In the center of the circle was a hole in the ground about 2 meters deep. At the bottom of the hole sat something that made Taman forget to breathe. It was roughly the size of a small car, but shaped like a teardrop or a seed. The surface was smooth and covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when he looked at them. The color was hard to describe. Sometimes it looked silver, sometimes blue, sometimes like oil on water showing all colors at once. Taman climbed down into the hole carefully. Up close, he could see that the object was damaged. One side had a long crack running through it. Some of the symbols were flickering like broken lights. He put his hand near the surface but didn't touch it. The air around it felt warm. This was not a meteor. This was not from Earth. Taman knew he should call someone. The government. The military. Scientists. Someone who knew what to do with alien spaceships that fell out of the sky. Instead, he walked around it slowly, looking at every detail. His engineer brain was already working, already analyzing. The crack was the main damage point. The symbols around it were dead, not flickering. Power distribution problem, maybe. The rest of the hull looked intact. Whatever this thing was made of, it had survived the fall remarkably well. He spent an hour just observing, taking pictures with his phone, making notes. Then he climbed out of the hole and went back to his workshop. He told himself he was going to call the authorities. He even picked up his phone twice. But each time he put it back down. If he called them, they would come with trucks and soldiers and equipment. They would take the object away. He would never see it again. He would never know what it was, how it worked, why it had come here. The thought bothered him more than it should have. By noon, Taman had made a decision that would change everything. He was going to open it. Not all the way, just enough to see inside, just enough to understand what he was looking at. Then he would call someone. He went back to the crash site with more tools: portable generator, work lights, welding equipment, his laptop. He set up a work area at the edge of the hole and got started. The symbols on the hull weren't just decoration, they were some kind of interface. When Timon touched certain combinations, they would light up or change. It took him 6 hours of careful testing, but he started to understand the pattern. The symbols were organized in groups. Each group controlled something different. He couldn't read them, but he could see the logic behind them. Engineers speak a universal language, the language of systems and functions and cause and effect. Timon might not know what the symbols meant, but he understood what they did. 3 days later, he was still working. He barely slept. He ate rice balls and instant coffee and forgot about the tractor he was supposed to fix. Mr. Kim came by looking for him, but Timon pretended he wasn't home. He couldn't stop now. He was close to something. The power system was the key. The object had some kind of internal battery or reactor that was almost dead. Once Timon figured out how to connect his generator to it, the symbols started glowing brighter. More functions became available. He found what looked like a door mechanism. On the 4th day, just after dawn, Timon activated the door sequence. The hull split along invisible seams with a soft hiss. Air rushed out, cold and smelling like nothing he'd ever smelled before. Not bad, just strange. Foreign. The door opened outward like a flower blooming. Inside, lit by pale blue light, was a chamber filled with clear gel. And floating in that gel was a person. At least it looked like a person. She had 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But her skin had markings on it that glowed faintly, like someone had drawn circuits on her with luminescent ink. Her hair was white and floated around her head in the gel. She wore a suit made of material that seemed alive, shifting and rippling. She looked about his age. Her eyes were closed. She wasn't moving. Timon stood frozen, his mind trying to process what he was seeing. An alien, a real alien. And she was right here 3 meters away from him. Then her eyes opened. They glowed amber, bright and piercing. They locked onto Timon immediately. The gel around her started to drain away rapidly. She moved, her hand pressing against the inside of the chamber. The glow from her markings intensified. Holographic displays exploded into existence around the pod. Symbols and images and things Timon couldn't understand filled the air. They spun and shifted, showing diagrams and charts and what looked like star maps. The woman in the pod was looking right at him. Her lips moved. A voice came from the pod speaking words he didn't understand. It sounded urgent. Then one of the holographic displays changed. It showed a simple image. A circle with numbers counting down. Timon didn't need to read alien symbols to understand a countdown timer. Whatever was happening, it had already started, and he had about 72 hours before it finished. The gel drained completely and the woman collapsed forward. Timon caught her before she hit the ground. She was heavier than she looked, and her skin felt cool and slightly strange, like touching smooth stone that had been in the shade. He helped her sit against the side of the pod. She was breathing hard, coughing up traces of the gel. Her glowing markings pulsed rapidly, and Timon wondered if that meant she was scared or hurt or angry. He had no idea what to do. First aid training didn't cover aliens. The woman looked up at him. Her amber eyes were sharp and intelligent. She said something in her language, then touched a symbol on her wrist. The holographic display shifted and a small device floated out from the pod. It looked like a metal flower with petals that rotated slowly. The device spoke, translation matrix initializing. "Please wait." Timon almost laughed. Of course they had translation devices. If you could travel between stars, you could probably translate languages. Language patterns detected. Korean, English, Mandarin available in local databases, adjusting. The voice from the device became clearer, more natural. Translation active. Accuracy approximately 67%. Will improve with data. The woman spoke again, and this time Timon heard her words in Korean, though slightly delayed. "Thank you for not letting me fall." "Where am I?" "Earth," Timon said. "South Korea. You crashed in the mountains 4 days ago." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Earth, yes, I remember." Emergency landing. Systems failed. She looked at the pod behind her, at the crack in its hull. "You repaired the emergency systems. You gave power back. That saved my life." "I didn't know you were in there," Timon admitted. "I just wanted to see how it worked." She smiled, which surprised him. "Curiosity? A good trait. What is your name?" Taemin, I am Ina. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. Taemin caught her again. I have been in suspension for a long time. My body needs to remember how to work. He helped her out of the hole and back to his workshop. It was slow going. Ina could barely walk and had to stop several times to rest. By the time they reached the building, the sun was high in the sky. Taemin kept looking around nervously, expecting to see helicopters or military vehicles, but the mountains remained quiet. Inside the workshop, he cleared a space on his old couch and helped Ina sit down. She looked around at the tools and machinery with what seemed like fascination. Her fingers traced the edge of his workbench. You fix things, she said. This is your purpose? It's my job, yes. I'm an engineer. Engineer. She repeated the word carefully. This is good. My people, the Vel, we forgot how to be engineers. We had machines that built machines that built machines. When everything broke, no one remembered how to fix anything with their hands. Taemin got her some water and found some crackers in his cupboard. Ina examined the food carefully before eating. The water she drank quickly. Your atmosphere has more oxygen than I am used to, she said. It makes me feel dizzy, but I will adapt. How long were you asleep in that pod? Taemin asked. Ina was quiet for a long moment. I do not know how you measure time. Many years. My ship was part of an evacuation fleet. We were running from something terrible. A wave of energy that destroys everything complex. Stars, planets, life. It moves slowly across the galaxy, but it cannot be stopped. And you were running from it? Everyone was running. Millions of ships. The Vel and dozens of other species we had made contact with. We took what we could carry and fled. She looked down at her hands. My pod was a preservation vessel. I carried data archives. Art, science, genetic templates, cultural records from many civilizations. I was supposed to deliver them to a sanctuary world. What happened? The evacuation was chaos. Too many ships, not enough organization. There was a collision. My navigation systems were damaged. I had to make an emergency landing on the nearest habitable planet. She gestured around her. Here, but my pod was not designed for atmospheric entry. It burned through too much power. I went into deep suspension to conserve energy. Taemin tried to wrap his mind around what she was saying. Millions of refugees fleeing across space, civilizations abandoning their homes. How long ago did this happen? Ina touched her wrist device. Numbers appeared in the air. According to my pod's clock, I have been in suspension for 347 of your years. Taemin felt his chest tighten. 300 years. She had been asleep in that pod since before his great-great-great-grandparents were born. Do you know if your people made it? If they survived? Her markings dimmed slightly. No, I have no way to contact them. My communication systems are damaged. I do not even know if they are still alive. She looked at him with those strange amber eyes. I may be the last Vel in existence. They sat in silence for a while. Taemin made tea, something normal to do in a situation that was anything but normal. Ina held the cup carefully, watching the steam rise. The archive, Taemin said. The data you're carrying, can it be recovered? Yes, but it requires significant power and the proper access codes. The pod's reactor is failing. I have perhaps a few weeks before it dies completely. She set down the tea. Taemin, I need to ask you something important. Will you help me save the archive? It is all that remains of dozens of civilizations. It must not be lost. He wanted to say yes immediately, but he forced himself to think. If I help you, people will find out. The government will come. They'll take you away, study you, maybe lock you up. Are you ready for that? Ina nodded slowly. I have no choice. The archive is more important than my freedom. It is more important than my life. Over the next week, they worked together on the pod. Ina taught him about Vel technology, not by explaining complex physics, but by showing him the philosophy behind it. We build in layers, she said. Each system supports and backs up the others. Complexity is fragile. Elegance is strong. Taemin found himself learning faster than he ever had in university. Ina was a patient teacher, and she seemed genuinely impressed by his intuition. You understand the logic of machines, she told him. That is rare. Most people see magic where there is only engineering. He learned that the Vel had been explorers and scientists, traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had made contact with over 200 different species. Most were peaceful. Some were not. The Vel had tried to preserve knowledge from all of them. Why? Taemin asked. Why save the history of people who might have been your enemies? Because extinction is permanent, Ina said simply. Hatred is temporary. Even enemies create beautiful things worth remembering. They fell into a routine. Mornings were spent working on the pod. Afternoons, Ina rested while Timon did his regular repair work. He couldn't just abandon his neighbors. Evenings, they talked. Ina wanted to know everything about Earth, about humans, about how his species had developed. He tried to explain politics and religion and art. She listened with endless curiosity. Your people are still young, she observed one night. Still fighting among yourselves over resources and territory. But you have potential. I see it in you. You care about fixing things, not breaking them. Not everyone is like that, Timon said. No, Ina agreed. But enough are. That is what matters. On the 8th day, everything changed. Timon was in the village buying supplies when he saw military helicopters flying in formation toward the mountains. His stomach dropped. They were searching the area systematically, flying in a grid pattern. He drove back to the workshop as fast as he could. Ina was standing outside, watching the helicopters. They are looking for me, she said calmly. We have to hide you. Where? They have sensors that can detect heat, electromagnetic radiation, probably even the specific elements in my body. There is nowhere to hide. She turned to him. It is time, Timon. I must make contact with your authorities. They'll take you away. Perhaps, but you will come with me. You are the only human I trust. Tell them that, she smiled sadly. I knew this moment would come. I am ready. The helicopters circled closer. One of them descended toward the clearing near the workshop. Soldiers would be here in minutes. Timon looked at Ina, this strange woman from the stars who had crashed into his life. She had taught him so much in just a few days. He didn't want to lose her to bureaucrats and military protocols. But she was right. They couldn't hide forever. And the archive was too important. Okay, he said. We do this together. Ina reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warmer now than when she'd first emerged from the pod. Thank you, Timon, for everything. You gave me a second chance at life. You gave me a purpose again, he replied. The helicopters landed. Soldiers emerged, weapons ready but not aimed. An officer approached slowly, hands visible. Timon and Ina stood side by side, waiting. History was about to change. And it had started in a small repair shop in the mountains, with a man who just wanted to understand how things worked. The officer's name was Colonel Byung-ho. He was older than Timon, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too much. He looked at Ina for a long time before speaking. I am Colonel Byung-ho of the Republic of Korea Armed Forces. We detected an anomaly in this area 8 days ago. We've been searching ever since. He looked at Timon. You found something. And you didn't report it. I did find something, Timon admitted. But it wasn't mine to report. It's hers. Ina stepped forward. The translation device on her wrist activated. I am Ina of the Vel. I crashed on your world by accident. I mean no harm. I seek sanctuary and offer knowledge in exchange. The soldiers behind Byung-ho shifted nervously. Some raised their weapons slightly. The colonel held up a hand, keeping them steady. Sanctuary. You're a refugee? Yes, my people fled a cosmic disaster. I became separated from them. I have been in suspended animation in my vessel for over 3 centuries of your time. Byung-ho absorbed this information with remarkable calm. I need to take you to a secure location. Both of you. There are people who need to speak with you, scientists, government officials. I understand, Ina said, but I have conditions. Timon must come with me. He is the only human I trust, and my vessel and its contents must be protected. They are precious beyond measure. The colonel looked at Timon. You've been harboring an extraterrestrial for over a week. That's several violations of law. She needed help, Timon said. I helped her. I'd do it again. Something flickered in Byung-ho's eyes. Respect, maybe. Or just exhaustion. Get your things. Both of you. We're leaving in 10 minutes. They transported Ina's pod by helicopter with Timon and Ina traveling in a separate aircraft. Through the window, Timon watched his workshop disappear behind the mountains. He wondered if he'd ever see it again. The facility was 2 hours outside Seoul, hidden in a complex of buildings that looked like a university campus, but felt like a prison. Guards everywhere, cameras, checkpoints. They took Ina to a medical wing immediately. Timon tried to follow, but soldiers blocked his path. She needs me, he protested. She needs doctors first, Byung-ho said. You'll see her again. I promise. They put Taemin in a comfortable room that was clearly designed for interrogation. Soft lighting, nice furniture, no visible cameras, but he knew they were watching. Over the next 3 days, different people came to question him. Intelligence officers, scientists, even a government minister. They wanted to know everything. How he found the pod, what he did to open it, what Ina told him. What she wanted, Taemin answered honestly. He had nothing to hide, but he kept asking about Ina, and no one would tell him anything useful. On the 4th day, a woman in a white lab coat came to see him. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes behind wire-frame glasses. She introduced herself as Dr. Haiwan, lead scientist on what they were calling the Contact Project. Ina is asking for you, Dr. Haiwan said. She refuses to cooperate fully until she sees you. I thought you might want to know she's doing well. Remarkable biology. Carbon-based like us, but with significant differences. Her body processes oxygen more efficiently. Her cells regenerate faster. She's adapting to Earth's environment better than we expected. Can I see her? That's why I'm here. But first, I need you to understand something. What happens next will affect all of humanity. Ina has offered to share her archive. Do you know what's in it? Knowledge from dozens of civilizations. Science, art, culture. More than that. Medical treatments we haven't dreamed of. Energy systems that could end our dependence on fossil fuels. Agricultural techniques that could feed billions. It's everything we've been struggling toward handed to us on a silver platter. Dr. Haiwan sat down across from him. But there's a problem. The archive is locked behind encryption we can't break. Only Ina can access it. And she's being very careful about what she reveals. She wants to make sure we're ready for it, Taemin said. That we won't use it to hurt each other. Probably wise. But it makes negotiations complicated. Half the government wants to give her whatever she needs. The other half thinks she's a threat that should be contained. Dr. Haiwan studied him carefully. You know her better than anyone. What does she really want? Taemin thought about the quiet evenings in his workshop, talking with Ina about lost civilizations and the weight of being the last of her kind. She wants the archive to matter. She wants it to help someone. She's been carrying it for hundreds of years, and she doesn't want it to die with her. Dr. Haiwan nodded slowly. Come with me. They took him through a series of corridors to a lab that was clearly built around Ina's pod. The vessel sat in the center of the room, connected to dozens of monitoring devices. Scientists worked at computer stations analyzing data, and sitting on a chair beside the pod, looking small and tired, was Ina. She stood when she saw Taemin. Relief crossed her face. You are safe. So are you. I was worried. They have been kind. Curious but kind. Dr. Haiwan has many questions. Ina glanced at the scientist. I have told them about the archive, about my offer. We need your help accessing it, Dr. Haiwan said. But Ina insists on a careful, gradual release of information. She doesn't trust us yet. I trust Taemin, Ina corrected. The rest of you I'm still learning about. Over the next weeks, they established a routine. Ina would work with scientists during the day, explaining Vel technology in careful detail. Taemin was brought in whenever she needed a familiar face or when his engineering knowledge was useful. He found himself translating between Ina's way of thinking and human understanding. The pod's reactor was their main focus. It was dying faster than Ina had predicted. They had maybe weeks left, not months. If it failed completely, the archive would be lost forever. Dr. Haiwan assembled a team of the best engineers and physicists in the country. They worked around the clock, trying to understand alien power systems that operated on principles they barely grasped. Progress was slow and frustrating. Meanwhile, word of Ina's existence leaked to the media. Taemin never found out who did it, but suddenly the whole world knew. Alien refugee lands in South Korea. Carries technology that could change everything. The news exploded. Some people celebrated. Others panicked. Religious leaders argued about what Ina's existence meant for their beliefs. Politicians positioned themselves for advantage. The UN demanded access. China and the United States sent diplomatic messages that were barely concealed threats. Colonel Byung-ho increased security around the facility. The world is watching now, he told Taemin. Everyone wants what she has. Some of them are willing to take it by force. Ina watched news broadcasts from around the world with sad eyes. I have seen this before. Species tearing themselves apart over resources. Technology that should unite them becomes another reason to fight. We're not all like that, Taemin said. No, but enough are. She turned to him. Taemin, I must tell you something. Something I have not told the others. They were alone in her quarters. A comfortable room that still felt like a cage. Ina pulled up holographic displays from her wrist device. Star maps appeared showing a section of the galaxy. The wave that destroyed my people, she said quietly. It is not a natural phenomenon, or if it is, it behaves in ways we never understood. It destabilizes complex matter at the quantum level. Anything intricate enough falls apart. Planets, stars, life. How far away is it? By your measurements? 800 to 1,000 light years, moving at approximately 0.03 times the speed of light. She met his eyes. It will not reach this part of space for many centuries. Your people have time. The weight of her words settled over him. Does Dr. Haiwan know? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first, because you deserve to know the truth. She closed the displays. The archive is not just history. It is a warning. And a toolkit. Everything my people learned about surviving extinction events is in there. We need to tell them. I know, but I am afraid. Afraid they will panic. Afraid they will make things worse. She looked so tired. I have been carrying this burden for so long. I do not want to carry it alone anymore. Taemin reached out and took her hand. Her skin was warm now, fully adapted to Earth's environment. You're not alone. You have me, and there are others who will help, Dr. Haiwan, even Colonel Byung-ho. They're good people. The next day they called a meeting with the senior staff. Ina revealed everything. The cosmic wave, the timeline, the fact that Earth had less than 1,000 years before it would have to face the same threat that destroyed the Vel. The room went silent. Dr. Haiwan was the first to speak. 1,000 years? That's 33 generations. We have time to prepare. If we work together, Ina said, if we do not tear ourselves apart fighting over the archive. That is what destroyed many of the civilizations I carried data from. They knew the wave was coming. They chose to fight each other instead of preparing. Colonel Byung-ho rubbed his face. This changes everything. The UN needs to know. Every government needs to know. Agreed, Dr. Haiwan said. But we need to be careful how we present this. Panic helps no one. They spent hours discussing strategy, policy, and implementation. Taemin mostly listened, but occasionally Ina would look to him for support or clarification. He realized she trusted him not just as a friend, but as a bridge between her world and his. Late that night, after everyone else had left, Taemin and Ina stood in the lab looking at her pod. The hum of its reactor was weaker now, clearly dying. We're running out of time, Taemin said. Yes, Ina touched the hull gently. This vessel has kept me safe for so long. It deserves better than to die in a laboratory. Then we fix it properly together. Taemin smiled. That's what we do best. 3 weeks after Ina revealed the truth about the cosmic wave, the United Nations held an emergency summit. Representatives from 193 countries gathered in Geneva. Ina appeared via secure video link with Dr. Haiwan and Colonel Byung-ho beside her. Taemin sat in the back of the room trying to be invisible. The session lasted 12 hours. Ina explained everything again. The archive, the Vel, the wave, the warning. She offered to share knowledge gradually, carefully, in ways humanity could absorb without destabilizing. The response was predictable chaos. Some nations demanded immediate access to all the technology. Others wanted Ina quarantined or studied more thoroughly. Religious representatives argued about the theological implications. Scientists begged for the medical data. Military advisors wanted the defensive capabilities. Everyone had an opinion, and most of them contradicted each other. Through it all, Ina remained calm. I understand your fear, she said, and your desire. But I have seen what happens when civilizations rush to embrace technology they are not ready for. It destroys them faster than any outside threat. A representative from a powerful nation stood up. Who are you to decide what we're ready for? You're a refugee. You need us more than we need you. Ina's markings dimmed. Dr. Haiwan leaned forward to speak, but Ina touched her arm gently. You're right, she said quietly. I do need you. I need sanctuary. I need help saving the archive. But the archive also needs you to be worthy of it. Knowledge without wisdom is just data. It changes nothing. The summit ended without agreement. The UN would reconvene in a week. In the meantime, different nations sent private messages to South Korea, offers of money, resources, alliances. Some were diplomatic. Others were barely concealed threats. Back at the facility, Taemin found Ina in the lab staring at her pod's displays. The reactor readings were worse. They had days left, maybe a week. We made progress on the power problem, he said. Dr. Haiwan's team thinks they can stabilize the reactor using a hybrid approach. Combining your technology with ours. It will not be enough. Ina pulled up a new display. The archive is locked behind encryption that requires significant power to break. More power than the reactor has left. To access everything, I would need to send out a signal pulse. A signal? To where? To anyone listening in local space. It is how VEL systems verify identity and unlock secure data. But the signal would mark Earth's location. Other refugees might see it, some desperate, some dangerous. She looked at him with tired eyes. This is the choice I must make. Risk your world's safety to save the archive, or let the archive die to keep Earth hidden. Taemin sat down heavily. Have you told the others? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. You always help me see clearly. She smiled sadly. What should I do, Taemin? He thought for a long time. What would your people have wanted? To survive. To be remembered. The archive was everything to them. Ina touched the pod's hull. But they would not have wanted me to endanger another species to preserve their memory. Then maybe there's another way. Maybe we don't have to choose. They worked through the night. Taemin sketched ideas on a whiteboard while Ina explained the technical constraints. They called in Dr. Haiwan around midnight. She brought coffee and fresh perspective. What if we could access the archive without the signal? Taemin said. What if we manually transferred the data? It would take months, Ina said. And I would have to interface directly with the pod systems. The neural feedback would be intense, possibly lethal. No, Dr. Haiwan said firmly. We're not killing you to save data. The data is more important than me. That's not your choice to make alone, Taemin said. He turned to Dr. Haiwan. What if we built a buffer? Something to absorb the feedback and distribute it over time? Dr. Haiwan's eyes lit up. A neural interface dampener. We'd need to understand her biology better, but theoretically... She started pulling up her own notes. Yes, this could work. They brought in the engineering team. Worked for 3 days straight. The hybrid system they designed was part VEL technology, part human innovation. It used Ina's understanding of neural interfaces combined with Earth's best medical monitoring equipment. But there was still the power problem. The reactor didn't have enough energy left for a full transfer, even with the buffer system. Taemin stared at the numbers on the screen until his eyes hurt. There had to be a solution. There was always a solution. That's what engineering was, finding the path forward when everyone else saw only walls. Then it hit him. We're thinking about this wrong, he said. We don't need to unlock the entire archive at once. What if we could make the signal local, just strong enough to reach Earth orbit, not deep space? Ina looked at the calculations. The encryption protocol might accept a reduced power signature. It would be slower. Years instead of months, but it would not send a beacon across the stars. Years we have, Dr. Haiwan said. It's better than nothing. They presented the solution to Colonel Byung-ho and the government officials. A slow-release protocol. The archive would transmit its knowledge gradually over decades, signals weak enough to be undetectable beyond Earth's immediate area. Humanity would grow into the knowledge instead of drowning in it all at once. The officials were skeptical. Decades? We need this technology now. You need it responsibly, Taemin said. He surprised himself with how firm his voice was. Ina's people had thousands of years of advanced technology. They still died because they forgot how to adapt. How to work together. If we just download everything and try to use it all at once, we'll tear ourselves apart fighting over it. A tense silence filled the room. Then Colonel Byung-ho spoke. He's right. We've already seen how divided we are. Imagine if we had access to weapons and power systems we barely understand. It would be a disaster. The debate went back to the UN. This time Taemin was asked to testify. He stood before representatives from every nation and told them about fixing tractors in a mountain workshop, about choosing to open the pod even though it was dangerous, about learning from Ina that complexity without wisdom was just another word for fragility. Ina's people were more advanced than us in every way, he said. But they're gone. We're still here. Maybe that means something. Maybe it means we have something they lost. The ability to adapt. To work with our hands and our minds together, to fix things instead of just building new things. His speech wasn't elegant. He stumbled over words and spoke too fast in places. But it was honest. And somehow it mattered. The vote was close. Many nations wanted immediate access to everything. But enough agreed to the slow release protocol that it passed. Implementation began immediately. Dr. Hewan's team installed the buffer system. Taemin helped Ina connect to the pod safely. The first transfer took 6 hours. Ina emerged exhausted but alive, her markings pulsing slowly like a tired heartbeat. "It worked," she whispered. "The archive is transmitting." The first data packets contained agricultural information, techniques for growing crops in harsh conditions, methods for water purification. Within weeks, drought-stricken regions started seeing improvements. Nothing miraculous, just steady progress. Then came medical data, treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Not cures downloaded from space, but frameworks for understanding illnesses better. Doctors still had to do the work, but now they had better tools. Taemin watched the changes ripple across the world. It wasn't the dramatic transformation some people had hoped for, but it was real, sustainable. People were learning, not just copying. 3 months after the first transmission, Ina moved into a new facility designed for her comfort and safety. Not a prison, but not complete freedom either. She accepted the constraints with grace. "I am a guest here." Guests follow house rules. Taemin visited her every week. Sometimes they worked on improving the transmission protocols. Sometimes they just talked. Ina was learning about human culture with the same curiosity she showed for everything. She loved old movies and spicy food and the sound of rain on windows. "I thought I would die alone," she told him one evening. "The last of my kind forgotten in a broken pod. But you found me. You gave me purpose again." "You gave me something too," Taemin said. "You reminded me why I became an engineer. To fix things. To make things better." "We fixed each other," Ina said softly. A signal came 18 months after the first transmission began. Not from the archive, but from deep space. A weak message in a language the translation device recognized. Another Vel survivor pod asking for help. Then another signal. And another. Dozens of refugee ships fleeing the same cosmic wave. Different species. Different stories. All desperate for sanctuary. The UN held another emergency summit. This time the question wasn't about Ina. It was about all of them. Would Earth become a haven for refugees from across the stars? The debate was fierce. Resources were limited. The risks were real. But something had changed in the 18 months since Ina's arrival. Humanity had started working together in ways it never had before. The shared knowledge from the archive had created new connections, new collaborations. Dr. Hewan spoke at the summit. Ina showed us compassion when she could have hidden what she knew. She offered help when she could have bargained for more. Maybe it's time we showed the same compassion to others. The vote was closer than before, but it passed. Earth would become a sanctuary, not because humans were perfect or ready, but because they'd been shown what compassion looked like, and they wanted to be worthy of it. Taemin stood with Ina on an observation deck, watching the first refugee ship descend through the atmosphere. It was larger than her pod, carrying dozens of people from a civilization he'd never heard of. "This is just the beginning," Ina said. "More will come. We'll figure it out," Taemin replied. "Together," she took his hand. "Yes, together." 2 years had passed since Taemin opened the pod in the forest. The world he knew was gone, replaced by something stranger and more hopeful than he'd ever imagined. He stood in what used to be his workshop. It looked different now. The government had helped him expand it, adding new equipment and space for students. But he'd kept the original workbench, the one where he'd first sketched his ideas for fixing Ina's pod. Some things were worth preserving. 3 students worked at stations around the room. 2 were human, 1 was not. Her name was Keela, from a species called the moth who'd arrived 6 months ago. She had 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't perceive. She was brilliant at understanding mechanical systems. "Teacher Taemin," Kayla said, using the title the students had given him. "I cannot understand this engine. The fuel mixture makes no sense." He walked over to look. It was an old combustion engine from a 2020 truck. Ancient technology by current standards, but Taemin believed in teaching fundamentals. "Look at the carburetor," he said. "What's its purpose?" Keela examined it with two of her hands while the other two held tools ready. To mix air and fuel in proper ratio. Right, but this engine is old. The mixture was never perfect. The builder compensated with other adjustments. Can you find them? He watched her work, patient. Teaching was different than fixing, but he enjoyed it. These students would be the first generation of bridge engineers, people who understood both human intuition and alien methodology. They would build the future. His phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Haiwan. Can you come to the facility? Ina wants to show you something. Taemin told his students to keep practicing and drove to the research complex. It had grown significantly. What started as a single building now sprawled across several acres. New laboratories, housing for refugee populations, medical centers, schools. Over 40 different species lived there now. Some would stay permanently. Others were just passing through, their ships being repaired, their people recovering from long journeys. The facility had become a small city of refugees from across the galaxy. Security waved him through. Everyone knew Taemin by now. He was famous, though he hated it. The man who found Ina. The bridge between species. Media from around the world wanted interviews constantly. He turned down most of them. Dr. Haiwan met him at the entrance to Ina's section. She looked tired but happy. She's made a breakthrough with the archive. Something big. She wouldn't tell me what until you arrived. They found Ina in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays. She'd put on weight over the past 2 years. No longer the half-starved refugee from the pod. Her markings glowed bright with excitement. Taemin! You must see this. She pulled up a display showing complex patterns. I have been analyzing the deep archive data. Information from the oldest civilizations the Vel encountered. And I found something remarkable. What is it? Evidence of others. Not refugees fleeing the wave, but species who survived it. She zoomed in on a section of data. 3 different civilizations found ways to shield their worlds from the wave's effects. The methods varied, but they all worked on similar principles. Creating stable fields that prevent quantum destabilization. Dr. Haiwan leaned forward. Are you saying we could protect Earth? Perhaps. The technology is complex and the power requirements are immense. It would take centuries to build, but it is possible. Ina's eyes were bright. Your people have time. 800 years, maybe more. If you work together, you could build defenses that my people never imagined. Taemin felt something loosen in his chest. Hope, maybe, or relief. The cosmic wave had been a shadow hanging over everything. Knowing there might be a way to stop it changed things. I need to tell the UN, Dr. Haiwan said. This changes all our long-term planning. After she left, Taemin sat with Ina in the quiet laboratory. You could have revealed this earlier, he said. Why wait? Because I needed to be sure humanity was ready to hear it. 2 years ago you were divided, fighting over the archive like scavengers. Now you work together. You help refugees. You teach and learn, she smiled. Now you are ready to think about protecting yourselves. We still fight sometimes. Of course. Cooperation is not the absence of conflict. It is the choice to work through conflict instead of being destroyed by it. Ina pulled up another display, this one showing Earth surrounded by mathematical models. These shield designs will require global coordination, resources from every nation, cooperation across generations. It will be the greatest project humanity has ever attempted. We'll do it, Taemin said. We have to. They walked outside to the facility gardens. It was spring, and human flowers grew alongside plants from a dozen different worlds. Someone had created a hybrid garden, mixing species that would never have met without the refugee crisis. They sat on a bench watching children play. Human kids and alien kids running around together without the fear or prejudice their parents sometimes showed. They'd invented a game that worked for different body types and abilities. Pure cooperation. I have been thinking about the future, Ina said quietly. About what I will do with my life here. The archive will finish transmitting in another 30 years. After that, my purpose is complete. So find a new purpose. That is what I hope to do. She watched the children carefully. I would like to teach. Not engineering or science, but philosophy. The lessons my people learned too late. About balance. About preservation and adaptation. About the value of diversity. The university in Seoul would be lucky to have you. She laughed. I think I would prefer somewhere quieter. Perhaps a small school in the mountains, near a workshop run by a stubborn engineer who once fixed a broken pod for fun. Taman felt warmth spread through his chest. That could be arranged. They sat in comfortable silence watching the sunset. In the distance, a transport ship descended through the clouds. More refugees arriving, more people needing help. 3 months later, Taman opened a new school adjacent to his expanded workshop. The building was small but well-designed, combining human architecture with elegant Vel principles. Ina taught morning classes on philosophy and cultural preservation. Afternoons, she helped in the workshop, teaching practical skills. Students came from across the region, human and non-human, learning together. The curriculum mixed traditional education with new approaches from dozens of worlds. Mathematics taught through Vel notation systems. Literature from civilizations that existed before humans left the trees. Taman found himself learning as much as teaching. Every species had different ways of solving problems, different perspectives on what mattered. The moth saw structural relationships humans missed. The Krell understood harmony in ways that transcended music. The Volet thought in probabilities that made human logic seem primitive. But humans had something too, an adaptability that impressed even the oldest species, a stubborn refusal to accept that problems couldn't be solved, and hands that remembered how to build things, fix things, create things. Your species is young, an elderly Krell teacher told Taman. But youth has advantages. You have not yet calcified into rigid thinking. You still believe anything is possible. Is that good or bad? Both. It makes you reckless, but also capable of remarkable things. The Krell gestured toward the workshop where students worked on a hybrid engine design. You brought us together, not through force or grand design, but through simple compassion. Ina crashed here by accident. You helped her because it was right. That simplicity is powerful. 5 years after opening the pod, Taman received an invitation to speak at the UN again. They were breaking ground on the first shield generator prototype. A massive project that would take decades to complete, but the work was beginning. He stood before the assembly and talked about small things. About fixing a tractor engine for a neighbor. About curiosity leading him to open a mysterious pod. About learning from a refugee that wisdom mattered more than knowledge. We didn't save Ina, he said. She saved us. She showed us what we could be. Compassionate, cooperative, strong enough to help others even when we're afraid. The speech was broadcast around the world and to refugee ships across the solar system. Taman became a symbol again, though he still didn't want to be. He just wanted to teach and fix things and spend time with Ina. They lived quietly in the mountains. Not together in the way gossip magazines speculated, but together in the way that mattered. Partners in building a future. Friends who'd saved each other in more ways than either could count. 10 years after the crash, on a clear autumn evening, they sat on the hill behind the workshop watching ships move across the sky. Transports and cargo vessels and passenger craft. The traffic had increased so much that Earth now had orbital stations to manage it all. Do you ever regret it? Taman asked. Crashing here instead of reaching your people. Ina was quiet for a long time. I mourned them. I still do. But regret? No. I found something here I did not expect. Purpose, community, home. Even though you're the last Vel? I am only the last pure Vel, but look. She pointed toward the school where lights glowed warm against the darkness. 3 of my students have Vel heritage mixed with other species. Children of refugees who fled the wave. The Vel will live on in them. Changed but not gone. Evolution, Taman said. Yes, perhaps that is the real lesson. Nothing stays the same forever. Species evolve. Cultures blend. The future is always different than the past. She looked at him with those amber eyes that had startled him so badly a decade ago. Your people used to be alone. Now you are part of something larger. You have changed too. He thought about that, about how humans had reacted when Ina first appeared, the fear and chaos and division, and how slowly, painfully they'd learned to work together. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but better than before. The archive still transmitted. 30 more years of knowledge waiting to be absorbed. The SHIELD project moved forward. Refugee populations integrated into Earth societies, sometimes smoothly, sometimes with friction. Problems remained. Disagreements. Conflicts over resources and territory and fundamental beliefs. But they were solving things. Working through differences. Building frameworks for cooperation that hadn't existed before. One of Taman's students, a young human woman named Jiwoo, had developed a hybrid engine that used Vel principles with Earth materials. It was more efficient than anything either species had built alone. She'd open-sourced the design, making it available to everyone. That was becoming common. The hoarding instinct that dominated early reactions to the archive had faded. People shared knowledge now, built on each other's work, competed but cooperatively. "We are creating something new," Ina said. "Not human or Vel or Moth or Krell. Something that combines the best of all of us." "Do you think it will be enough to survive the wave when it comes?" "I do not know, but I believe you will try. And trying with all your combined strength is better than any single species could manage alone." She stood up, offering her hand. "Come, I want to show you the new curriculum I designed. It combines human creativity exercises with Vel logic frameworks." They walked back to the school together, their shadows long in the moonlight. Behind them, ships continued to arrive. More refugees, more knowledge, more challenges and opportunities. The universe was bigger and stranger than humanity had ever imagined, full of wonders and dangers in equal measure. But Earth was no longer facing it alone. In a workshop in the mountains, an engineer who'd once just wanted to fix tractors had opened a door to the cosmos, and the cosmos had walked through, frightened and desperate and hopeful. He'd given them sanctuary. They'd given humanity purpose. Together, they'd created something worth preserving, something worth fighting for when the wave eventually arrived. A future built by many hands working together, fixing what was broken and creating what had never existed before. That was humanity's gift, not advanced technology or ancient wisdom, just the stubborn belief that any problem could be solved if you worked hard enough, cared enough, and had the courage to try. Taman had learned that fixing a crashed pod in a forest, and now he spent his days teaching that same lesson to anyone who wanted to learn. The archive continued its patient transmission. The shield generators rose slowly, and in a small school in the Korean mountains, the future took shape one student at a time.